Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Matt Stewart Sports High School Football Podcast. Coming up in this week's episode, we're going to talk to Roswell head coach Jonathan Thompson in his first season with the Hornets, coming off a signature win this past Friday night against the Gainesville Red Elephants. And now they've got an even bigger game this Friday night as they play host to their rivals, their arch rivals of over 70 years, the Milton Eagles. So going to talk to him about all that and more, and about his great team and his great quarterback, Trey Smith. So stick around for that coming up here in the next couple of minutes. Also going to take a look at the biggest winners of the week, our players of the week, the top recruiting news of the week, and preview the biggest games coming up this Friday night, which will be the final Friday night of the regular season, with many region championships and playoff berths still up for grabs. As of right now, a total of 23 region titles have been clinched in 6A, McEachern and North Gwinnett. The last two teams you've seen the last two Friday nights on GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia have clinched region championships. They're the only ones in the state's highest classification to do that so far. And, of course, this last Friday night, you saw North Gwinnett pummel Norcross 44-6. We certainly didn't think it was going to turn out that way, but North Gwinnett proving that they're a team that is ready for a deep, deep playoff run. They got a shot at the state championship, folks, because, you know, their offense has come around. Their defense has been there. Their offense has come around, and they don't rely on any one or two players. In fact, they have two quarterbacks. They've got a trio of running backs. They've got 4 or 5 wide receivers that can catch the ball and do something with it. So they're deep on offense. They're hard to guard, as Norcross figured out, because you don't know where the ball is going. It can go anywhere because they're so talented and deep. Some star players, but really more talented than deep than anything else. So North Gwinnett has clinched the region championship. They did that with the win against Norcross this past Friday night. And this Friday night, on GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia, another region championship will be on the line as Douglas County plays at Carrollton. They'll be battling for the Region 2 6A championship, and that'll be this Friday night at 7:30 on GPB. Should be a fun one. Trojans are 9-0 on the season. Douglas County 7-2. They have not lost since we saw them against Buford back in early August. Should be a fun game, chock full of great college football prospects and a region championship on the line to boot. So join us on Friday night. And our stream game of the week, another region championship will be on the line there in Region 5 6A as Marietta takes on North Paulding. Of course, we visited with Cameron Duke, the head coach of the Blue Devils, just a couple of weeks ago. This team's one of the hottest teams in the state, one of the great storylines in the state this year. Great turnaround after an 0-4 start against a brutally tough non-region schedule. They have run the table so far in their region, and they are 5-0. A victory gets them the region title. It would be the first for the Blue Devils in about 20 years. So a lot riding on that game as well. In 5A, Thomas County Central, ranked number 1, of course, in my rankings since the preseason, haven't moved. They've clinched, so has Rome and Woodward Academy. In 4A, only Region 2 remains up for grab. The other 7 regions have been clinched, and all, of course, are ranked in the top 10, my top 10, including North Oconee, Cartersville, and Creekside. And, of course, North Oconee with some big question marks as they go into the playoffs. They lost Kamari Brooks, their best player, a couple of weeks ago, the 4-star, who's committed to Georgia defense, but he also played offense. Special teams, did everything for the Titans. Huge loss. Going to be hard to repeat as state champions without him. And now Harrison Faulkner, their 3-star quarterback, the son of Buster Faulkner, who's the OC at Georgia Tech, and Harrison's committed to Georgia Southern. He did not play in their last game this past Friday night because of injury. So if he's out, wow, almost impossible for North Oconee to lose those 2-star players. Hopefully Harrison's injury is not serious, and he will be with them for the playoffs. In 3A, defending state champion Calhoun has already clinched, and so has Jenkins and North Hall. Funny, I met the grandparents of Mason McGill, North Hall's 3-star offensive lineman, met them at the Georgia High School Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony this past Saturday night at the College Football Hall of Fame, and they're very proud of Mason. He's a three-star offensive lineman who is committed to Charlotte and the anchor on that offensive line for this Trojans team that's 9-0 on the season. He's the nephew of Hall of Fame inductee Kurt McGill, who starred at Brookwood High School. And I got to see Kurt again. He reminded me back when he was in high school playing for the Broncos, I interviewed him. So how funny is that? We just had a great time at the Georgia High School Football Hall of Fame induction ceremonies, and I'll have a little bit more on that coming up here on the podcast in just a few moments. In 2A, 2 of the 8 have already clinched, including the 2 Carvers, Carver Columbus and Carver Atlanta. Could we be headed towards another Carver versus Carver state championship showdown? It happened in 2021, might happen again here in 2025. In 1A D1, Worth County, a lot of the rankings have had them number 1 all season long. I've had them number 2 behind Heard County, but they've clinched, and so has Athens Academy. They're having a great season under Coach Alexander. They're kind of back again. They haven't gone anywhere, but they're state championship contenders again for Coach Alexander. It's been a while since they've been in that class, the state championship contender class. Looks like they are here in 2025 in the private classification. Gordon Lee, one of the big stories. Gordon Lee clinched their first region championship since 1978. So congratulations to them. In 1A D2, Lincoln, Clinch, and Early counties. All 3 of the counties have clinched. Of course, Lincoln's been number 1 in my 1A D2 rankings for virtually the entire season. So if you'd like to check out my entire rankings, we won't go through them here, of course, because it's the top 80. That's 80 teams that I rank every week, and it also serves as my ballot when I turn it in for our GPB sports rankings as well. But this is my separate rankings, and you can find them on my X account, the Twitter account at Matt Stewart TV, if you want to check out all those rankings. Other headlines here before we dive into the meat of the podcast here. Colquitt County 4-star running back Jae Lamar is back with the Packers after he had been dismissed from the team earlier this season. After meeting with Coach Sean Calhoun, the Georgia Bulldogs commit was reinstated, and he played, scored a couple of touchdowns in Colquitt's 45-28 win over Camden County last week. So going to be interesting. Certainly that changes their projection as they go into the state playoffs to have Jae Lamar back, their most talented player. And, of course, when we had Sean Calhoun here on the podcast, he talked about, the whole offense is built around Jae Lamar. So to get him back is huge for the Packers and certainly increases their run of making a deep run in the state playoffs. And who knows, we might see them on GPB Sports coming up in the early rounds of the state playoffs. We kind of, we have been internally looking at the brackets and trying to figure out where we will be starting on November 14th after that bye week there, the first Friday of November. So it's always exciting when we start to get into the brackets. And let me tell you, it's going to be even more exciting next year when we get into the seeded brackets based on the power rankings. Going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. All right, next up on the headlines list, Georgia High School Football Hall of Fame inductees, the 4th class, headlined by Kirby Smart. Coach Smart was there. And of course, he was a star at Bainbridge High School and then went on to play at Georgia, and you know the rest. He's the head coach of the Georgia Bulldogs. Cam Newton was inducted. Cam starred at Westlake. He couldn't be there, but he did send a video message, so great to see Cam Newton there. And Walt Frazier, this to me is the most intriguing of all the inductees. Walt Frazier, the Walt Frazier, who was a superstar NBA Hall of Famer, Pro Basketball Hall of Famer with the New York Knicks, was inducted into the Georgia High School Football Hall of Fame. And long before he was an NBA star, of course, he was a star quarterback at Murphy High School in Atlanta. And true to his character and nature, if you know anything about Walt Frazier, and he still does the games. He's 80 years old now, but he looks fabulous, by the way. He still does the games for New York Knicks television. And one of the things that's kind of his trademark is he wears the most outrageous, and I mean that in a complimentary way, colorful, outrageous suits and he had one for his video message to us. It was just a pleasure to see him. And I got to personally, this is the fourth consecutive year I've been, I've done MC duties. They split it up. John Nelson's part of it, and Bill Hartman and Sam Crenshaw and DJ Jones and Brandon Adams. Might have missed somebody. Hopefully I didn't. But we all kind of split up the MC duties because 33 players get inducted. And so the players that I got to introduce were Danny Buggs, who starred at Avondale High School, went on to play in the National Football League and the Canadian Football League. It was a pleasure to meet him. The late Jimmy Burson, his daughter Buffy, was there to receive for him. Isaiah Crowell, you remember the name, right? Isaiah Crowell from Carver, Columbus. And still to this day, probably the most iconic recruiting decision reveal in the history of college football recruiting, when, most guys show up and they got the hat and they have to have the hat sitting in front of them, and then they grab the hat that they're going to commit to and put it on their head. And sometimes, they take off a jacket and they got the shirt on or whatever the case. Isaiah Crowell, of course, committed to the Georgia Bulldogs out of Carver, Columbus, and showed up, and his big reveal was a little baby bulldog puppy. To me, still the best all time. Going to be hard to top that. That was fantastic. Of course, he's back home now in his hometown of Columbus after an NFL career. Had a pretty good NFL career, 5 years, Browns and Jets. So he got inducted. Knox Culpepper, tackling machine for the Lovett Lions, and then for the Georgia Bulldogs. To this day, he still holds the single game record, had 26 tackles against Georgia Tech in 1983, and he holds the single season record, 170 total tackles. Knox Culpepper, got a chance to introduce him, and Robert Edwards. Of course, Robert, star at Washington County, and then went on to the Georgia Bulldogs and became a star running back there, even though he was projected to be a defensive back when he got there because of injuries. Georgia moved him to running back, and he became a star running back, all SEC running back, and we all know the story. He went on, he was a first-round draft pick of the New England Patriots and had an incredible rookie season with the Patriots, and then he was out at the Pro Bowl. After that season, they were playing football on the beach there in Hawaii and just totally destroyed his knee. I mean, to the point where they thought they might have to amputate his leg. It was really that bad. And obviously an injury that was hard for him to come back from. He never made it back to the NFL, but he did play in the Canadian Football League. And now he's been a head coach here in Georgia for 16 years, and now the head coach at his alma mater, Washington County. So, and his brother Terrence went in a couple of years ago. So it was a big deal. He got to level up with Terrence there by being inducted into the Georgia High School Football Hall of Fame. So that was a lot of fun. Other big stories, headlines. We got a lot of headline stories this week, more so than usual. Savannah Country Day has announced they're moving to the GIAA after almost 70 years in the Georgia High School Association. That means there's been 17 schools that have gone from the GHSA to GIAA since 2022, and this is concerning. I was there again, kind of referencing the Hall of Fame, kind of in the pregame show, the meet and greet and sit around and nibble on the buffet and that kind of thing. Just talking to some coaches, and there was a coach there who played for the Georgia Bulldogs. He's now a coach at Fellowship Christian School, and this subject came up, and it's a big concern because there are schools that are leaving the Georgia High School Association for the GIAA. And so the number of private schools, especially in that 3A to a 1A class where they have that special classification, they're dwindling. And I know a lot of people say, well, why don't they just put them in the same classification? There's not enough of them. There's not enough of them anymore to have their own classification. So it makes a huge conundrum for the Georgia High School Association. I don't know what the answer is. I can tell you this, that I've been covering high school football a long time. And even before I covered high school football, I watched high school football, obviously. And going all the way back to my high school days, the public school, private school thing has been a thing. And it's not going away. So wish them the best as they try to figure out how to navigate this thing, because every year it's a thing. What about the private schools? And even and even as we're talking about it here on the podcast, you got private schools winning region championships, in regions where they're competing against public schools, but then when they go to the playoffs, they won't be competing against those public schools. They'll be competing just against private schools, even though they won that region championship. So it's just a tough thing. Anyway, I don't know there's an answer to it. Not an easy answer to it, that's for sure. All right, next up on the headlines list. I didn't realize this until this week, and I saw a post on X about it, and so I started investigating. Do you know that Johns Creek High School is on the verge of doing something that hasn't been done in Georgia since Colquitt County in 1979, and that's go through the entire season without scoring a point? It's hard to believe, but the Gladiators have been outscored 482-0. That's an average of 53-0 per game. And what's really astounding about it is not too long ago when Coach Helmerich was there, they were rolling pretty good. They got to the quarterfinals. I mean, that's in my recent memory. We did a GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia game of the week there against Cambridge that was overtime that was like 52-49. It was a great game. And they were there. They were in the mix. And now I don't know what's happened, but the program has obviously fallen on very, very hard times. And they're going to close the season this Friday night at Chattahoochee. So wishing them the best. Now, this is no disrespect to Chattahoochee, but Chattahoochee is 1-8 on the season. And of course, Johns Creek's 0-9. You don't score any points, you can't win. Chattahoochee's 1-8. Chattahoochee gives up 43 points per game. So here's hoping that Johns Creek can score some points. I'm not pulling for them to win. I'm not pulling for Chattahoochee to win. I'm not pulling for anything other than I want to see these kids score some points. Not a field goal. Let's get a big fat touchdown. Let's get a couple of big fat touchdowns, and let's just have a great game between Chattahoochee and Johns Creek to close out the regular season, and hopefully the Gladiators players can score some points. That's just got to be so tough. And so pulling for them to get it together, score some points on offense this Friday night. All right, let's take a look at my players of the week. Man, it was tough this week. We had so many deserving candidates and so many that, basically I just didn't get a chance to even include. But let's start with the players of the week. And that's going to begin with my quarterback. And I'm going to go with Blaze Thomas of Savannah Christian. He was 14 of 18 for 262 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, plus 14 carries for 128 yards rushing and a touchdown in the Raiders' 45-19 win over a very good Swainsboro team. So you're talking about close to 400 yards of total offense for Blaze Thomas in this game. I'm going to go an honorable mention here, and I haven't done this the entire season. I usually don't, fair or unfair, I usually don't give out honors to teams whose teams lose. But I've got to give an honorable mention to Jack Rhodes of Aquinas. This guy's not even a quarterback, although you'll hear his numbers here say, what do you mean he's not a quarterback? He's not a quarterback. He's a wide receiver who is committed. He's a 3-star wide receiver who's committed to Virginia. But because of injuries with the Irish, he's had to step in there and play quarterback. And this past week, in a losing effort, no less, he went 27 of 50 passing for 381 yards, 5 touchdowns, plus 31 carries for 181 yards and 1 touchdown. My quick math tells me that's 560 yards of total offense by himself, even though the Fighting Irish were a tough 49-42 losers to West Lawrence. So, yeah, he's got to be honorable mention this week. I mean, he could be the quarterback of the week other than his team didn't win. Of course, I make the rules. I can do what I want, but I'm going to call him, I'm going to say honorable mention for him. What a great athlete he is, by the way. Just tremendous. My running back of the week comes from that same game, and it's Ty Cummings of West Lawrence, 18 carries for 250 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns. He's committed to Georgia Southern, and I know he's visited both Georgia Tech and Georgia. He's just a little bit too much. I think he's probably too small to play or get a look with those teams, but he's going to go to Georgia Southern. He's a fabulous running back. In fact, this is the funny thing. So I'm calling my game on Friday night, and my brother-in-law, Lewis, who lives in Augusta, has gone to the Aquinas West Lawrence game, and he is texting me up a storm about this Ty Cummings kid. He goes, this guy's amazing. It's the first half, and he's already scored 4 touchdowns. So it was funny. That's kind of my little personal story about Ty Cummings and that game between West Lawrence and Aquinas. So he's my running back of the week. And again, I'm going to go honorable mention here because there were so many incredible performances. Mooney Gibson of Kell, I couldn't forget about this guy. He had 22 carries for 244 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns in the Longhorns' 45-18 win over Cambridge. So that's my honorable mention at running back. My wide receiver of the week is Keon Standifer. He's been in this place before. Keon of Athens Academy had 6 catches for 218 yards, 4 touchdowns, plus a 98-yard kick return touchdown for 5 total touchdowns in the Spartans' 49-46 shootout win over Rabun County. And so Athens Academy's done for the regular season. They're now getting ready for the playoffs. But I've told you before, Keon Standifer's a kid I saw playing in the 8th grade when I called the Georgia Elite Classic All-Star games, for Rusty Manziel. That's his big thing, the Georgia Elite Classic. And it's a fun event. And, they hold a camp. They do the whole thing. And, of course, I've had the opportunity to call some of those games. And that's when I saw Keon Standifer when he was just in 8th grade. He's committed to Georgia Tech. My offensive lineman of the week, Josh Jones, 6'1", 264-pound junior left tackle. He led the way for the North Gwinnett Bulldogs and their offensive line in that 44-6 win over Norcross. That was an offensive line that helped roll up 301 yards rushing and kept the Bulldogs quarterbacks, because they play both, clean on 23 passing attempts. He also started both ways. So he started on the defensive line. He started on the offensive line. He had a great game, and he was matched up against a 4-star on the other side of the ball. And really, he won those battles. He was winning those battles. Josh Jones is my offensive lineman of the week. My defensive lineman of the week goes to Gabe Clark of Sprayberry. He had 10 total tackles, 3 TFL, 2 quarterback sacks in the Yellow Jackets' 55-21 win over Lassiter. My linebacker of the week, Jacoby Herring of Thomas County Central, 9 total tackles, 3 TFL, 2 interceptions in the Yellow Jackets' 31-7 win over Houston County. Yellow Jackets are really good. People are talking about them too. Most of the conversations I get is, I haven't seen TCC play yet, man. They must be really good. Yeah, they are really good. I had them number 1 in my rankings in 5A since the preseason. They haven't budged. My DB of the week, going back to that West Lawrence Aquinas game, J.D. Hogan had 11 total tackles, 2 interceptions in the Raiders' win over Aquinas. My special teams player of the week, Brian Duncan of Cairo. How about this game for Brian Duncan? He blocked a field goal. I don't know if he blocked it, but he took back a blocked field goal, 78 yards for a touchdown. He had a 70-yard punt return touchdown. He had 4 catches for 132 yards receiving in the Syrup Makers' 38-31 win over Peach County. And that was a big upset, at least on paper it was a big upset. But the Syrup Makers got off to a slow start, got beat in their first 2 games, but they've run the table since. And my kicker punter of the week is Elijah Fry of Norcross. And again, the first time I've done players from losing teams, but I had to go with Elijah because I saw this kid in person. And so I saw him with my own eyes. Kicked a 45-yard field goal, 49-yard field goal, had a 51-yard punt average on 3 punts in a losing effort. I was really impressed with Elijah Fry. He's a 5-star kicker punter these days with the way things are working in college football. And it was always that case, kickers, punters are last. And sometimes it's a preferred walk-on kind of thing. But now, even with the portal and all that kind of stuff, it's even more difficult. He'll find a place. Don't know where it'll be yet, but he'll find a place. But the thing I love about him is the trajectory he got on his kicks. I mean, when that ball left his toe, it was almost like a sky ball. It was almost like he punted it on the field goals. He got that thing so high, which, of course, is so very valuable, keeps kicks from being blocked. So Elijah Fry is my kicker punter of the week. All right, stick around. We're getting ready to talk to Roswell head coach Jonathan Thompson here in just a couple of minutes. Remember, like, follow, subscribe, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, listening on iHeart, listening on Apple. Please subscribe. and like it and pass it along to your friends as well. All right, my biggest winners of the week, and we got a bunch of them, and we'll kind of go through the classifications when appropriate. In 1A D1, I had Athens Academy's 49-46 win over Rabun County. In 1A D2, Wheeler County beat Wilcox County 40-38 in 4 overtimes. So I don't know what was going on in the single A classes. Must have been in the water, man. But they had shootouts all over the place where, basically if you didn't score 40 points, you weren't winning. So it was crazy week in Class 1A. In 3A, K-Rose 38-31 win over previous number 3 Peach County, handing the Trojans their first loss of the season. In 4A, Warner Robins stuns number 7 Ware County 48-44. This is a Warner Robins team that has not had a great season. They're just now 5-4 on the year. They had a big loss against Benedictine, the worst loss in school history earlier this year. But they snap back and get a big win over the Gators of Ware County, so good for the Demons. In 5A, number 1 Thomas County Central beat number 4 Houston County 31-7, so Thomas County Central clinches the region championship and the number 1 seed coming out of that region. And so good for them. Thomas County Central, they're going to be hard to beat, especially at home. Getting that number 1 seed, if they win those coin tosses in the quarters and the semifinals, last year we'll be doing that stuff, remember, because we're going to the seeding next year. But, man, they're going to be tough to beat if teams have to go down there and play them. And we know that's going to definitely be the case for the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. And my number 1 biggest winner of the week, number 6 Roswell, stunning number 3 Gainesville 37-35. I said stunning because we saw the Red Elephants a couple of weeks ago on GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia win at Milton. And with them going home and playing Roswell, you had to figure Gainesville was the favorite. Now, we did this game last year at Roswell on GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia, and it was our best game of the regular season. It was like a 49-48 or 49-47 shootout. I forget the final score. It was crazy. But Roswell won last year, and then they go up there to Gainesville, and they win again 37-35. The Roswell Hornets, my biggest winners of the week. Time now to welcome in Roswell Coach Jonathan Thompson. Coach, thanks a lot for visiting with me today, and congratulations on your huge win against Gainesville this past Friday night.
I appreciate you having me on, man. It was a heck of a win, and we're excited around Hornet Country.
No doubt about it. Biggest win of your season so far, and I say that because now you got to try to top it with another big win at home this Friday night versus Milton. How do you manage the emotions of back-to-back big games like that and, big games to possibly win a region championship?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that go into that. I think probably the biggest one for this team has got to be the fact that we've played so many big games and throughout the course of this season, right? Whether it was going to Walton or going to Westlake or going to Buford. So I think the kids are used to having to prepare and be prepared each week for a big time ball game. So that helps. I think the fact that Roswell is a school of tradition and has played a lot of big games before I've gotten here, and these kids are used to that. And then I think myself and our staff have been a part of a lot of big games as well. So we understand what the process looks like. We understand what it's like to prepare for multiple weeks, and when you get into playoff time, that's exactly what it looks like, right? And we're fortunate enough to be in a region where, hey, you better be ready to go every Friday night, and that's why the non-region is so important. The culture, the tradition of our kids in this program, and then our staff's kind of experience, I think those all help when factoring in that.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, I mean, this scenario that you're in here with Gainesville and then Milton back-to-back really is kind of a playoff scenario. The only difference, of course, is there's no end of the season looming for the loser of the game. The season will continue on, and now the playoffs will continue on, and the positioning in the playoffs is what's up for grab here this week against Milton.
That's right. Yep. So I think we talked about this a little bit this morning. It doesn't get any bigger than this. Halloween, 8 o'clock. You got a chance to go win a region title here, and we control our own destiny. We wouldn't want it any other way.
Wild win against Gainesville, to me, just reaffirming that your quarterback, Trey Smith, is one of the best in the state, regardless of what the recruiting rankings may say. And I know, he's because of size and all that kind of stuff, he just doesn't get a whole lot of attention from the recruiting rankings. But this guy, been watching this guy play quarterback now since his sophomore year, and what a heck of a quarterback this young man is.
He's special, in every way possible, right? The way he approaches the game, the way he approaches life. I think everybody's seen at this point what he did with his homecoming king crown, and that's just that's a snippet of who he is every day. He really truly gives back to all that he's around, and I'm a firm believer when you do that, then it comes back to you tenfold, right? He came in here yesterday when we were game planning for Milton on Sunday, and he had a snippet for me and said, "Coach, if we're not doing for others, then why are we still here?" And that's just who he is. And I think that shows on the field because it doesn't matter to him whether we win by him throwing for 250 or running for 100 or running for 20. As long as the Hornets have more points than the other team on Friday night, he's going to be excited. But he just prepares at an elite level. The game is a lot slower for him on Friday nights because of his ability to process, his intelligence. His mother and father have done a great job. His mom's the principal at Riverwood High School here in Fulton County. His father's works for UPS and is a part of corporate law with them. So he just comes from a great family who've raised a great young man, and he's been a part of this program for a long, long time. Been playing in the feeder program here at Roswell since he was in third grade. So he knows these kids. They know him, and he's just a competitor in every way possible. And then athletically, he can do it all. He can do it with his legs. He can do it with his arm. And so, yeah, I think it's a shame that he doesn't have as many offers as he'd probably like. I think there's some people out there that are missing out on him, and anybody that turns on the tape would probably agree with me. But you know what? He doesn't look at it that way. He doesn't let that bother him. He really just goes to work and is the same person every day, which those are the ones you love to coach. So I'm gonna miss him. I'm gonna try to find a way to redshirt him. I've told some people that. He's a special human being.
I tell you what, you're referencing, for those who have not seen it, just Google his name. It'll pop up immediately when he was named your homecoming king, and he did something amazing that's gone viral, not just viral in the state of Georgia, not just viral in the United States, but has gone viral worldwide. He went and took his homecoming crown and he gave it to Jake Jeffries, a fellow student who has Down syndrome, is a big fan of the Roswell Hornets. Obviously, he can't play football. And that was just an amazing thing that he did. And all the things that you just described, it doesn't surprise me that he did that, but just what an amazing human being. If he never rushes for another yard in football, his legacy's been set.
No doubt. It was a special moment, man, for those that have seen it via video on the web. But being there live in person, we were fortunate enough to be winning that night. I think it was 50-0 at halftime. And we were able to actually have kind of a moment of, okay, there's 7 minutes on the clock. We think our guy might have a chance to win it. So I took the entire team, put them in the corner of the end zone, and we got to watch it live and in color. And it happened. And when I tell you there was no hesitation from Trey, there was no hesitation. As soon as he got the accolade, he didn't want it. He wanted to share it, and he wanted to give it to somebody else, which, again, just shows who he is.
Yeah, and I encourage folks to go Google that. I mean, just type in his name, Trey Smith. It'll pop up immediately. It's an amazing experience, and it'll choke you up a little bit. It really will. He finished 16 of 22 for 275 passing, 22 of 84 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns in your victory against Gainesville on Friday night. Led your team on a 99-yard touchdown drive after your defense made a huge goal line stand, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But it gave your team a 9-point lead with 2.5 minutes to go, and those points totally turned out to be necessary because Gainesville came right back on your thing. But then what he did next to seal the victory, if I'm not mistaken, he recovered the onside kick, didn't he?
He did. That was a conversation that myself and our special teams coordinator had a couple weeks ago about, hey, when we get in region play in these big ball games, we want the guys that are the 11 that we know that we can depend on. So we put him on Hand's team, and he made the play, and he looked like the shortstop for our for Coach McCarthy and the Hornets in that moment.
And he's a great baseball player, and we all know that too. That's another part of his skill set, is he's a tremendous baseball player, and recovered the onside kick after leading the team the entire night, the entire season, his entire career, and then recovers the onside kick to seal the victory there in hostile territory in Gainesville. Just an amazing thing. I'd like to see Patrick Mahomes do that.
He probably could, but I'm gonna
Oh,
bet
he
on our
could, but
number
I
one.
don't think they'd ask him to. That's the thing.
That's right.
That's just amazing thing right there. Now, I know you've been asked to compare Trey with the great quarterback you had at Lee County last season, Weston Bryan, who is now at Georgia Southern, getting playing time as a freshman. And I think ultimately he's going to be the guy with the Eagles, and I can't wait to see how that offense takes off when Weston gets his chance to be the number one there in Statesboro. But the difference in the two quarterbacks is pretty sizable, at least 3 inches, 50 pounds at the very least. But they do a lot of the same things in your offense that you had Weston doing last year at Lee County when you scored so many points, and you're doing this year at Roswell and scoring a lot of points too. So, what are the challenges and the similarities when you have two quarterbacks basically called on to do the same kind of thing, but with vastly different body types?
Yeah, they both are warriors in the weight room. And anybody that's seen either one of them lift would tell you that they're surprised that they're the quarterback. Trey looks like a running back linebacker body when he's doing squats. And Weston was similar, just taller. So they both have put on the armor to be able to run it at a high level. We try, with Weston, it really got him going, and that's kind of what got his juices going on Fridays. We ran him a lot more last year than we have Trey. We've been real smart and strategic about running Trey because we know how valuable he is. Not that Weston wasn't, but Weston was just a bigger body. He could take more blows. He could take more hits probably, and that's just because he's just so much bigger. But we've just tried to be real smart about running Trey, and they are similar, right? They're very similar in how they do things. I think that Trey's probably trained longer to be a quarterback. Weston was somebody that didn't start doing that until a later age. And Weston worked his tail off to be the best version of the quarterback for us last year that he could be, and he prepared like it every day. But there's definitely, I think Trey, as far as being a quarterback, was a little bit further ahead than him, at especially as his junior year. And then going into his senior year, there's just more reps. Over the course of time, he's obtained more reps. Trey has of playing that position, so that kind of gives him an upper hand as far as understanding defenses, understanding the operation of it. I think Weston obviously took off and understood all that by the time we were done, but it probably his junior year, especially, and early in his senior, it took him a moment. So again, they're very similar. We do a lot of things similar to them, but they're also different, right? Like one of them's really good at maybe running power, right? One of them may be good at zone read. One of them's maybe good at stretch. One of them's better at certain passing concepts. So every year as a coordinator and as an organizer, you got to try to do the things that they're better at. And I think that there's definitely things that both of them have the same, but there's also a lot that they do differently, just running and passing. Weston, probably the out route wasn't something he loved to throw, and Trey
Yeah.
loves it, right? So, and it was a new offense for Trey too, whereas Weston had been in the same terminology since he was 13 years old. For Trey, he was having to learn all this and basically learn a new language in February. So that had its challenges too. But again, like I've told people, the one thing or the thing that they have the most in common is just how they carry themselves and how they prepare. And you want them to lead your team. Yeah, anybody
Yeah,
in
the
this state.
Yeah, the true similarity is that they're dual threat quarterbacks and they go about it in different ways, but it's a lot of fun. Now with Weston, uh, with that body, I wouldn't say that he could take the punishment as much as he dealt the punishment. I mean,
That's pretty spot on. We've seen.
you had to make a business decision if you wanted to come up and tackle Weston.
Yeah, when you're 250 pounds and you hit 22 miles per hour, yeah, I think that there are some safeties and corners out there that had to make some decisions of whether or not they wanted to tackle him or not.
How about your defense? We talked about that goal line stand really set the stage for you guys to win that game, stopping Nigel Kirkus, a tremendous running back. You stopped him at the 1 yard line on that final play. And, I won't ask you to describe the whole sequence. You did a really good job of that in today's edition of the Georgia High School Football Daily. So if people want to get into the nuts and bolts of how you guys did that, you can just read that. And Todd Holcomb does a great job with Georgia High School Football Daily. But, what did it show you about the guts of your team? Because it redeemed a bit of a mistake that you guys had made in your punt game, kind of put you in a bad spot. And then your defense rises up and makes good on that and gives the ball back to the offense to go back down the field and get the winning points on the board.
It's really just a testament, and our defense is an embodiment of our coaches and the culture that was already here before. But I think Coach Waters and Coach Brooks and that entire defensive staff, they treat every day almost fourth and one-ish, and we know that it's never over till it's over, and they're never in till they're in. And our kids were just resilient throughout it. Man, we got a senior backer plays Mike for us named Brody Duffy,
Oh, I
who if
know
you get a
about him.
chance. Oh yeah, he's the guy that you want to see a high school football player. You watch him, and he really just leads that defense. And he made some really big plays and made sure that they couldn't get push up front on it. And we had some kids that were able to get some penetration. But I think it just shows again that we constantly preach play the next play. So whether it was the punt or the reason that they were able to get down there and be second and goal from the three, we're not going to harp on what was previously occurred. We're going to just play the next play and fix the mistakes when we get under that 10 or on Monday morning when we watch film.
Yeah, I know about Brody following in the footsteps of his brother Ryder, who was a tremendous linebacker himself. Brody, 113 tackles here going into week 10, 18 and a half TFL, 7.5 quarterback sacks, just an amazing season. And I think he's, if I'm not mistaken, I might be, but if I'm not mistaken, he's a great lacrosse player too.
He's actually a wrestler, so he finished
Wrestler, he's a
third.
wrestler.
Yes, he's a wrestler, so I think he finished third in state last year, got a really good opportunity to hopefully compete for it again. So I think it's great that we have another I'm forced to be around another leader that also wrestles as well, like Weston did last year, and they're both two tough jokers, man. But yeah, Brody's a heck of a player.
So what's this first season been like for you to make the jump from Lee County to Roswell? I mean, obviously, just on the surface, you can think of so many things that are so different about the two jobs and the two, maybe not the jobs, but the communities. First and foremost, traffic. As you found out here, you can't go. You got to make an hour plan for any time you want to travel anywhere in the city, just in case. But what have been the commonalities in the jobs, and also the I'm still getting used to things about the job?
Yeah, the traffic was the biggest concern, and I realized real quickly because of the hours that I work, I don't really deal with it. So it's been
There you
nice.
go.
I figured that out, but I think the similarities got to be just the tradition that both of them have, right? Lee County's not as long and storied as Roswell, right? Dean really got that thing rolling after he got there, and it's really only been in the past 15 years that that place has had the tradition that it's had, whereas Roswell's been good for a long, long time with Coach Manus and going back, 60, 70 years. So, but there both is a level of expectation to win. And I'll never forget being asked in the interview process, hey, how do you manage expectations? And I just told him, I said, look, I'm coming from a place where the expectation was to play in game 15 and to win region titles and to play late into season 3. And I wouldn't want to go anywhere where that wasn't the expectation. So I think they both have expectations to win. They both have expectations to carry yourself at an elite level. I think that obviously there's differences in the school in the fact that there are multiple schools in Fulton County and there's only one in Lee County, right? So there's definitely more red tape, but when you have an administration that is as supportive as ours, and I was able to kind of hit this thing at the right time. Dr. Morrissey got the job in December, and she's got a real commitment to the total student here at Roswell, both athletically and academically, and she's given us the resources that we need to be successful. And then Coach Suter, I messed up and called him Doctor not too long ago, so I still do. Athletic director Ben Suter is just phenomenal. The level of communication and support that he gives us on a daily basis is great. Which that's one thing. That's another thing that they both had in common. I know that it doesn't work if you don't have a great administration, and Lee always had that as well with Dr. Hancock and Coach Wright. So those are the biggest similarities. Again, and the difference being just that it is bigger, bigger school system. It's just more. But I think there's probably more similarities than people would give it credit for. Just because at the end of the day, it's football. They expect to win at both places, and both places the kids work at an extremely hard level. And that was the good thing is that was put in place before I got here. These kids worked and were great football players and a great program before I got here in February.
And your AD, Ben, of course, a great coach in his own right, and the son of one of the greatest relief pitchers in Major League Baseball history, Bruce Sutter. So, just so many storylines that come in and out of your program. There's no doubt about it. Let's talk about some of your other great offensive players real quick. Give some love. We've talked about Trey, but how about your running back Nick Peel? He's been your leading rusher, 884 yards, 13 touchdowns, and up front, 6'7", 275 Junior Miller. Westerfield at offensive tackle already has offers from the likes of like Kent State, Troy, and Wake Forest.
Yeah, obviously Nick Peel is a phenomenal player. He played defense for him last year for the most part, was kind of their short yardage back. We decided to make him kind of the every down back for us. Just thought the element that he brought physically would mean a lot for what we want to do offensively, and he's had a great season. And he's a dude that just comes to work every day, and if you ever look at him, you're like, man, you want him to get off the bus first.
Yeah,
So
he's
he's a
tough
great
between the
player.
tackles, no doubt. Yeah.
Yes, and our offensive line, man, is probably the group that has grown the most in since spring. Miller's obviously a great player, got a lot of length, but there's guys like Jake Harmon, who's our starting center, that was kind of the sixth offensive lineman last year that has just played phenomenal this year. I can't say enough good things about him. He's the brain for us. Our right tackle Abraham Brango is a first year starter, but a senior. He's going to get some looks. He's a tall kid. He's probably 6'3", 265, 270. First year really getting an opportunity, but man, has he flourished. I thought he had his best game of the season against Gainesville, against some of the best elite pass rushers that this state has to offer. Our guards, sophomore Hudson Rockhill, he's going to be a name to know. He's going to end up probably playing guard or center at the next level, but he's going to get some offers here, and it's not going to be long from now. And then our starting right guard is actually our long snapper, Seth Lerner, who soaking wet's 215, 220, but you ain't gonna find a meaner joker in this
Right.
school. And he's a high school football player in every facet. And then at receiver, man, two kids that flourished. I can't say enough about Wills Campbell.
He's had a
He had
great career too. Yeah.
Yeah, he really came on late last year for them, the last 4 or 5 ball games, and really, showed what he could do, and he's been our go-to guy, and I didn't realize how good he was, honestly, Matt, until we went he had been hurt in the spring and, had wrist surgery, but actually played with a broken wrist in basketball last year, but long story short, we went to the Georgia Tech Corky Kell, and I mean, if they were keeping stats at a 7-on-7, he broke all the records because he was unbelievable, and it's shown this year. And I think the biggest thing about him is when you turn on his tape, the guy is the most physical player probably on our team. Between him and Brody, people don't want to mix it up with him on the perimeter. And then Dre Kuzie's kind of the gadget guy that can take the top off of it at any moment. He's got elite speed. He plays slot for us, plays a little running back, and he's had a lot of big moments this year. And then we got a sophomore tight end and fullback because we're going to be in those sets a decent amount that have really, really flourished. And Sean Smith and our junior Aaron Evans that they don't mind getting down and dirty even if they're not catching it 10 times a game. So we got a really good group here offensively for sure.
Yeah, Campbell, 49 catches, 831, 7 touchdowns. Kuzi, 36 catches for 576 and 4 touchdowns. Some big time numbers in your high school football wide receiver core, no doubt about it. Now, we talked about Brody on the defensive side. You know, his fellow linebackers there, Tyler Presnell and Jake Smith, have combined for 22 TFL and 7.5 quarterback sacks.
Yeah, our linebacker core is really good, man. Our Mike, obviously Brody Duffy leads the way, but then you got a kid Hayes Kennerly, who's been hurt, but he had a really good season early on. Jake Smith's a sophomore for us, and that Smith name carries a lot around this place. Obviously, not just Trey and KJ and Sean, but Jake has brothers that have played here as well, so there's a legacy there. He's going to be a heck of a player for us, and he already is. He's just only going to get better. And then Tyler Presnall he actually plays like a hybrid safety role outside backer for us. Physical kid that plays with a chip on his shoulder, but he can run and cover too. And he's been a plug for us throughout the year for sure. And then the corners, man, I think those are the ones in our secondary. That was kind of like our O-line was a question mark for us.
Yeah.
On the offensive side, our secondary and our D-line were the question marks. And after spring and summer, you've just seen so much growth. Coach Brooks and Coach Wright have done a great job with our corners, and Nick Daniels and Christian English, both playing really, really well right now. And then Ian Faust, man, everybody kind of knows his name because of what he did against Lanier last year with 3 picks, and then he had another one against Lanier, and then he had a heck of a game the other night making a big play on the goal line. Caden Perry played running back for him last year, and now he's playing free and has had a heck of a season. And Alex Lucas up front, he's kind of like Brody, undersized defensive end that's just going to come and go to work and do his job. And then we've got Elijah Istanbulian, O'Shawn Walker, and Sekou Sharif who kind of finished up that D-line, and they're just maximizing who they are. Probably not the biggest unit in the state, but Coach Waters and Coach Brooks and those defensive staff have those guys flying around, and when you do that, you can play good defense.
Yeah, Ian's got 3 picks this year with 52 total tackles, just having another really good year. And then you got one of the best kickers in the state/nation in Balin Boris-Marty, who's committed to Georgia State. I got a chance to meet him last year when we did GPB Sports Football Fridays, and Georgia did the Gainesville game, which was probably our best regular season game of the year last year. And he's got a lot of swag to him. I don't know that I've ever seen a kicker that's got a cheering section quite like Balin does.
Oh man, he is special. Look, when
He
I
is
first
special.
got my first day on the job, I said I got to figure out how to say his name, and I got to form a relationship because I'd watched him kick it, and I ain't never seen a kicker like that in high school. I'm just gonna be honest with you. They don't, you don't find many that can put it, 10 yards out of the end zone on kickoffs and can nail 55 yarders. And he's got some confidence about him. He hit a game-winning kick for us against Walton as time expired, and there was no doubt he was gonna make it. The ball disappeared into the air that night, and he made a big kick on PAT the other night too. And when you can, and that's one thing for us defensively, because of how good Ballin is, defenses are having to go 80 yards, or offenses are having to go 80 yards. And as an offensive play caller, I know how difficult that is, especially in this region, which is with as good as the defenses that we play are. Ballin's such a weapon because he forces teams to have to go 80 yards on you. So yeah, he's special too, man.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was what I call a true game-winning kick against Walton because you make it, you win. He misses it, you lose, right?
That's right. So it's 30-28, and
Yeah. You
he
got to
drilled it.
make it. You got to make it. There's no overtime if you miss this thing, man.
That's right.
Yeah, that's huge. So now Team 76, I know, they're at Roswell, y'all count the years. So this is Team 76 for Roswell. And you're hosting Milton Friday night with the region championship on the line. And this will be the 71st all-time meeting between these two rivals. It's the longest running rivalry in the metro Atlanta area. It's nobody's even close to it, I don't think. Hornets have lost 6 in a row in the series. Of course, you haven't lost any in a row in the series, but it was virtually even before this recent run here by Milton. So what's the messaging to your team? Not only do you got a region championship on the line, you got playoff positioning. We all know how valuable the number 1 seed is coming out of the region going into the playoffs. And then you got the hated rivals from right down the road. I mean, this is a pretty passionate rivalry you're playing in on Friday night.
Yeah, it's gonna be my first time being a part of it. We've gotten a taste of it a little bit in sub-varsity games, and then, just stories that people tell. But I think it's a cool tradition, a cool rivalry that people would love to see at some point. You talk about the Lowndes Valdostas of the world, right? But I think this one rivals many of them in the state, and I think it's just going to be a great atmosphere. I think our kids, like we talked about earlier, they know how to prepare. They know, this game is just like the one we just played, right? It's got high stakes. If you don't win the one a week ago, then you don't have a chance to win region. And right now, you got everything in front of you. It's just going to be that much sweeter because you got the team that you could throw a rock at coming to your place on Friday night at 8 o'clock on TV. So they'll prepare, they'll practice well this week. I know that they're going to be excited. I think that you just continue to tell them, hey, come to work every day like you have since February, and let the chips fall where they may. But I know we'll be prepared and we'll be excited, and it'll be a great atmosphere.
Typically, you got to go to South Georgia to find rivalries this long, just simply because in Atlanta, the transition and the turnover in schools, a lot of schools, haven't been around 70 years to have a rivalry this long. And they certainly have been playing the same teams because of the regions and how
That's
they
right.
change things and the growth of schools. So it's unique in that regard here in the metro Atlanta area, in that this series is going to be the 71st time these two teams have played. Should be a lot of fun. Jonathan, thanks a lot for being with us. Continued success, and hope to catch up with the Roswell Hornets on GPB going forward in the playoffs.
Yes, sir, man. I appreciate you having me on and appreciate everything you do for Georgia High School football and athletics in general.
Great to visit with head coach Jonathan Thompson. It was the first time I've ever had a chance to really talk to Jonathan. And he was joking with me prior to the us recording that interview that he heard my voice in his head all these years because called their state championship game against Buford back in 2020 when they had just absolutely lost a heartbreaker in overtime against the Wolves. Ashton Daniels led Buford back to tie it up, and then in overtime, Lee County was going in for the game-winning state championship-winning touchdown right there at the 1-yard line. Big collision and tackle, and the running back got stripped, and Buford won the game. One of the more exciting state championship games that I've called. And Coach Thompson was the OC on that Lee County team, and now he's the head coach at Roswell and doing a great job, and wish him continued success this Friday night as they play Milton, and of course as they go into the playoffs. So like, follow, subscribe, If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or iHeart, or watching on YouTube, please pass it along to your friends. All right, let's close out this podcast. Got a few more things to cover before we do. Let's get to the recruiting news of the week and the big decisions. The biggest decision coming down over the last week was Blake Stewart, the 4-star safety from Woodward Academy, decommitted from Clemson. He has 43 other offers, including Michigan, Miami, and Vanderbilt. He's visited all 3 of those schools, and, of course, Clemson as well. So wait and see what Blake Stewart does. And, of course, with the way things have gone with Clemson this year, I mean, this is what happens, and players start to decommit. So wish him the best. Jordan Francis, 3-star cornerback from Redan High School in DeKalb County. You talk about a who's who of great athletes that have come out of Redan County. We talked about this at the Georgia High School Football, Hall of Fame. All the tremendous players that have come out of Redan. Chris Gardocki, the punter who was inducted, was from there. And Kevin Butler was from Redan. And Wally Joyner, the great baseball player, was from Redan. And Brandon Phillips, the tremendous baseball player who played close to 20 years in the majors, ended up with the Atlanta Braves. He was from there as well. So Redan might have fallen on some hard times lately as far as record-wise, but they have a tremendous history of great athletes in football and baseball and basketball. And Jordan Francis is from Redan. He committed to Tennessee State over 8 other offers, including Charlotte and Eastern Kentucky. Richard Dice, Douglas County senior linebacker. We're going to see Richard coming up this Friday night on GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia as he leads the Tigers against Carrollton. Committed to Georgia Southern over 12 other offers, including Georgia State and UAB. And Richard Dice is a beast. I mean, he had a huge game the last time we saw him, and that was back in early September at Buford. I think he had close to 18 tackles in that game. And Richard Dice, can't wait to see this young man play again, and we'll see that on Friday night. And Hayden Jackson from South Paulding. Now, it's been a while since he was at South Paulding. He's now at East Central Community College in Mississippi. But he was a star wide receiver at South Paulding back in the day. And he committed to Troy over ULM and Texas State, a couple of other Sunbelt teams. So good luck to him. It was good to see him his name popped up there, and I was like, I recognize that name. And I started digging a little bit, and indeed, he played at South Paulding. We saw him in 2021 on GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia. So now here he is. He's heading to Troy, committed to play for the Trojans. Let's take a look at the big games coming up this weekend. In 1A D2, you got number 4 Scriven County playing at number 7 Emmanuel County Institute. In 1A D1, the big game, number 7 Savannah Christian playing at number 3 Toombs County. Of course, the Bulldogs of Toombs County are the defending classification champions, and Savannah Christian is a contender in the private classification. The big game in the private classification, although it's really Class 2A because there is no private classification during the regular season. That's only during the playoffs. You got a rematch of the state championship game from the private classification coming up this Friday night, and it'll be for the region championship as Hebron Christian takes on Prince Avenue Christian. That should be another great battle. In 2A, you got number 6 North Murray at number 4 Rockmart, and that'll be a great region championship. North Murray, led by Hudson Hewlett. We've talked about him before here on the podcast. A great athlete, defense, offense, plays quarterback, really just an athlete. And they're 9-0 on the season, so that should be a lot of fun. Should be a great game. In 3A, getting into our top 5 games to watch. In 3A, you got the region championship, and a lot of people might say this is kind of a maybe a state championship game kind of preview as Sandy Creek plays at number 5 Troop. Of course, the Tigers won against LaGrange a couple of weeks ago, and now Sandy Creek, of course, I've had them number 1 in 3A since the preseason. They haven't budged. I think they're loaded. I think they're great. They're my favorites to win it, but this is going to be a huge game for the region championship. Win or lose, either team doesn't preclude them from perhaps still winning the state championship. In 5A, you got Lee County at Houston County. Lee County, ranked number 7, Houston County number 8 after that loss to Thomas County Central. Now, this is a big game. It's not for the region championship, but this is a big game because this is the 2-3 game. The winner is going to be the 2 seed, means they get a home playoff game. The loser is the 3 seed, which means they're going to be on the road. And we've told this story any number of times here on the podcast about, Houston County has not had a home playoff game since 2015, believe it or not. And that's because they keep finishing out of the top 2 in that region, which I think is the toughest region in all of Georgia high school football, Region 2 5A. And so if they can get the win, they're at home. If they can beat Lee County this time, and Dean Fabrizio's back on the sideline for Lee County, if they can beat Lee County this time, they're going to get that home playoff game. If they don't, they're back on the road again. So watch for that one. That one should be good. In 5A, you got Milton and Roswell. What a great game this is going to be. We talked about it at great length with Coach Jonathan Thompson just a few moments ago. This will be a tremendous game in 5A. It will, for Roswell, the way things shake out, Roswell, if they win, they're the region champions. If they lose, they're the number 3 seed. If Roswell wins, they're the region champs, and Gainesville will be the 2 seed, and Milton will be the 3 seed coming out of this region. If Milton wins, Gainesville will be the region champs, really co-champs, but for the purposes of the playoffs, they'll be the region champs and the number 1 seed. Milton would be the 2 seed, and the Roswell Hornets would be the 3 seed. So there's a lot riding, obviously, on that game. And 3 big games in 6A to keep your eyes on. Of course, the Wintersville Classic. I mean, this game kind of transcends football. This is like the Iron Bowl in the state of Georgia. You got number 6 Lowndes playing Crosstown at number 9 Valdosta. Both those teams are in the playoffs, but the playoff seedings and how many home games they get, all this is on the line. And, of course, the region championship on the line in this game. Lowndes is still undefeated on the season. They're 9-0. So should be a heck of a Wintersville Classic. Jack Leo, who writes for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, met him here at the Hall of Fame ceremonies this past Saturday, and he does a great job. If you haven't noticed, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution has kind of doubled down and redoubled their efforts on high school football. Got a new editor, and they are really going after it and really covering high school sports now, unlike some of the past editors. The new editor sees the value of this, and smart man, I would say smart man. And so Jack Leo is covering a lot of high school football and writing a lot of interest stories. He's going to be there at the Wintersville Classic. I'm envious of him. I've never been to it. So that should be a heck of a ball game, no doubt about it. North Paulding at Marietta is our stream game. As I mentioned previously, this will be for the Region 5 championship, and Marietta, the Blue Devils, trying to complete a dramatic turnaround from their 0-4 season start to win the region title. And our GPB Sports Football Fridays in Georgia game of the week, number 8 Douglas County at number 3 Carrollton. We did this game last year in Douglasville, and it was a great game. Carrollton at the time had Juju Lewis, the 5-star quarterback, in out Colorado, and they pulled away late and won big, but the score was not indicative of how close the game was. And this is going to be a fun one right here. And Carrollton's got another freshman quarterback. Imagine that. They had Juju Lewis, and now they got CJ Cipher. And this young man is already, he's a freshman. I think he's got double-digit offers already. So he's going to be big time. And this could be a fun game. Douglas County, they've had a great 3-year run here under head coach Johnny White. Now all those guys that kind of started this 3-year run as sophomores are now seniors. So this is their last chance to get a crack at Carrollton, and of course their last chance to make a deep run in the playoffs. And they've been to the semifinals each of the last 2 years. Is this the year they finally break through and get to the Benz and play in the state finals? Well, we don't find that out this Friday night, but we do find out who wins the region championship this Friday night. Douglas County and Carrollton, Friday night, 7:30 on GPB. Join me along with Wayne Gandy and John Nelson and our Emmy award-winning GPB sports team, which includes our producer, Glenn Diamond, producer to the stars. I'm not one of those stars. He's produced games for a bunch of big-time stars. I'm just a guy. So anyway, but no, we have fun. We have a lot of fun doing it. So that's this Friday night at 7:30 on GPB. That's going to wrap it up. Final Matt Stewart Sports High School Football Podcast of the regular season. I'll be continuing this during the playoffs. The schedule might be a little bit different because now we're kicking into November, and what that means is basketball starts for me as well, college basketball and pro basketball. The podcast will still keep coming, and that's why I invite you and encourage you to subscribe so that when it does come, you're going to get notifications for it. So thanks for watching the Matt Stewart Sports High School Football Podcast. We'll see you next week.